Hey there, and welcome to Make Teaching Easier with Artificial Intelligence, a digital course brought to you by ClassDoor. My name is Anthony Bokrinas, and I am honoured to be your teacher for this course, and I cannot wait to show you how amazing and brand new this game-changing technology is for us as teachers. I won't lie to you, when I show you how powerful this technology is, it can be a little bit scary. But I want to reaffirm with you that in no way will this technology replace your job as a teacher, but instead it's going to give you superpowers. It's going to enhance your capacity as a teacher to increase the learning outcomes of your students. So let's get straight on into it. I'm going to begin by giving you a little bit of background around myself. I'm an Australian secondary mathematics teacher, and I'm already so excited to see how I can use this cool technology in my own classroom. I'm actually an ex-actuary turned mathematics teacher, and I love bringing my own personal experience in industry and all the stories that come along with it straight into the classroom to engage my students. I have a history of providing mathematics notes to senior secondary students all across Australia. I've also got middle leader experience as a head of department and executive leader experience as a head of curriculum, managing timetables and teaching and learning across the school. So, what are you going to get out of this course? This course is a short, affordable, no fluff experience. We're going to get straight into it so that you can start implementing these tools into your lessons as of tomorrow. I'm going to show you how to sign up for these tools. And for the rest of this course, I'm going to abbreviate artificial intelligence as AI. We'll introduce that lingo. I'm going to show you the exact methods that are already used to reduce the weekly administrative tasks as a teacher. And I've got more than 10 practical use cases of not just teaching and learning in your lesson, but all of the other admin tasks that surround when you're on your duties other than teaching time in the general school day. I'm also going to go through the really likely implications of this amazing technology on your students, because it is not solely applicable to teachers. Your students can, and they will, very, very soon, with the benefits of social media, find out how powerful it is for them as students to be able to demonstrate their learning. So we'll go through what some of those implications are and how you can future-proof and forward plan for your lessons. And then we will conclude with where AI is going and what are some things that we need to be looking out for. Before I end off with this introductory video, I will also say that this is a live course. What that means is you have infinite access to this and all future versions of making teaching easier with AI. So if there are any updates to this course, I will personally email you because the likelihood of new AI tools and technology coming out in the next few years will be very high, and don't worry, I will keep you in the loop. I can't wait to get started, so let's hop on into it. Let's get started on topic 1, an introduction to modern AI tools and its application on education. So to get things started, I'm going to put a pretty striking image on the screen, and believe it or not, I've used AI to create this image. It's an image that is 100% original and does not exist anywhere else on the internet. It was originally created just for me. And I did this in 10 seconds. I've depicted a male's teacher who is stressed with the amount of marking that he's got to do. If I can do that, then I can't wait to show you how amazing this technology is. So to dive on in, let's go through how you have always been able to teach before. And then we'll show you what AI can do for you now. So I'm introducing you to the teaching task spectrum. On the screen here on the left are things that you do as a teacher, all the way to the right-hand side with what AI can do for you. And up until this point, you've completed 100% of your own admin tasks. You've created your own lesson plans and your own assessments and your own emails to colleagues and parents. Now, yes, you sometimes have the advice and support of your colleagues. And yes, sometimes over time, you've built up a bank of resources that you can use for some of those repeated lessons throughout the year. But for the most part, you're the one that's been responsible for all of the output of your own work. But this is where AI can now give you superpowers. And looking at this spectrum, there are 2 places where it can do this for you. The first one is halfway through, where it doesn't quite fully automate the process for you, and there is still some input from you as the teacher. And that is this idea that AI can help you begin tasks. So if you think about it, teachers are responsible for 2 things: We're creators. We have to create lessons and engaging questions and engaging stories and engaging means of teaching. We are also, number 2, writers. We have to write emails. We have to write report comments. A lot of that means that we as teachers suffer from creative burnout and writer's block. And if you're like me, maybe even sometimes a bit of procrastination. So this is where AI can at least help you get started with the process, give you a really solid template to work off, and then you can modify and edit it as you go. There are also, and even more excitingly, some tasks where AI is strong enough right now to begin automating 100% of the process for you. And if it's not quite there yet, in your experience in using AI, it will be very soon. Because remember, every single time a human sends a request into AI, the company that owns that AI software are using that to better improve their systems. And over time, it will become stronger and stronger and stronger to the point where scarily it will become almost undifferentiatable between a human and artificial intelligence. But that's pretty cool because we can use that to our advantage. So to get things going, we need to go through the most important lesson of this entire course. And if you're going to take one thing away from it, it needs to be this. And that is AI output. So the things that we're going to get out of AI is only going to be as good as the clarity and the detail that you as a human put into it. We can't expect an AI to write an amazing essay if we ask it, write me an essay on apples. It's not going to produce something that's worth high quality. However, if we gave the AI software really high clarity and detail of what it is that we precisely want as a teacher, then the quality of the output is only going to increase. So let's get going with what are the 3 types of AI that we as teachers can currently use. The first one is known as a language model, and it's the most common AI that we're going to use, and it's centered around the really popular software called ChatGPT, which is owned by the company OpenAI. But what is a language model? It sounds really confusing. Put simply, it is a website that has a chat box. You type into this chat box anything you want, and the AI will respond with a written output. For example, I type in, write me an essay on apples, the AI will give me a response, but not the quality that we want. Remember, it's about detail and it's about clarity. This is the most common and the most powerful one that we can use in our industry as teachers. The second model is an image model. So similar to a language model, in this example, we type into a chat box an image that we want to create, and the AI will produce a 100% original response to that input. And think about that slide that we just had before with that teacher really stressed about their marking load. That is an example of an image model. OpenAI, who also own ChatGPT, own software called DALL-E 2 that we can use as our image model for this course, and we'll go through how that works. The third one is known as an audio model. And audio models are becoming really, really powerful. And think of it as a supercharged version of converting typed text into a convincing and authentic sounding human voice that you can download as an audio file. This is going to be really, really handy for when we do feedback as teachers, where we can spice it up and give some audio feedback for our students. And audio technology is going to become a really key player within the teaching industry. Now that we've gone through what are our 3 types of models, let's get you now set up in part 2. In part 2, we are now going to get you accessing these modern AI tools. And keeping in mind that there are 3 that we are using, we are going to use a language model called ChatGPT, an image model called DALL-E 2, and an audio model called BigSpeak. Now, the really cool thing about modern AI tools is that at the end of the day, they're just websites. Meaning that if you're using a desktop computer, a laptop, a tablet, a mobile phone, you name it, any way that you access the internet, you can then access these modern AI tools. Now, the really great thing is that both ChatGPT and DALL-E 2 are both owned by the same company, OpenAI. Meaning this one website is almost a one-stop shop for us as teachers to be able to use AI in our own teaching practice. On the screen here, I have the link that you need to get started. It's openai.com. And when you open up this website, you're going to get to the home page of OpenAI. If you scroll down and in the bottom left-hand corner, you're going to see the featured section that lists all of the AI tools that OpenAI currently has available to the public. We can see the first one that we need, ChatGPT, is there at the top, followed by DALL-E 2, which is our image model. Let's begin by selecting ChatGPT. Now, at the time of this recording in January 2023, ChatGPT is free on a research basis. And if one day it transitions to a paid service, the way that you're going to access and log in is going to be identical to what I'm showing you now. Here on this screen, we can see that there is a button to try ChatGPT. That's going to open up a new page for you where you can then sign up and get to a screen that looks quite similar to any normal online service sign up, where you can use a Google account, a Microsoft account, or a personal email address to sign up. It will then send you an email to verify your account, and then you can log in straight away. Now I'm going to show you how you can access our second image model, DALL-E 2. Scrolling down to the bottom of the OpenAI webpage, just click on DALL-E 2 here. And we're going to get to this screen here, the DALL-E 2 homepage. Again, at the time of this recording in January 2023, DALL-E 2 is on a free and a paid service basis. What this means is you have free credits that you can use to generate a limited number of images. After you spend all of your credits, you will then need to pay for additional prompts to be used. But in saying that, you still have free access and a free method to be able to generate these images. Here on this screen on the DALL-E 2 homepage, we have the sign up button in the top right hand corner, meaning it's very similar to ChatGPT and any other online service that you'll use. Simply fill out your details, verify your account that comes into you as an email, and then you can get started straight away. Our third model that we're going to use is our language model. Now, there are many tools online on both a free and a paid basis, and the one that I'm here to show you today is known as BigSpeak. BigSpeak allows us to convert any typed text into an audio file. You can, without even needing to log in at all, type in up to 300 characters to convert. However, if you log in, and at the time of this recording in January 2023, this is free. If you create an account and log in, you can generate up to 1,000 characters and convert that into an audio file. In the same way as DALL-E 2, there's a register button in the top right-hand corner. Fill in your details, verify your account, and get started. Before we end off part 2, I need to give you some advice. And as a teacher, you would know that you have access to, on your learning management software, all types of personal and confidential information about the students and their families that you're working with. And the other thing that you need to know is every single time you type in an input into AI, they are owned by a public company who reserves the right to store that information to better improve their systems. So for your own best interest, I do advise you that every single time you use any sort of modern AI tool online, please make sure to de-identify it and remove any confidential information, just to safeguard you. In part 3, we're going to go through all of the practical use cases on how you can use AI in the classroom, which I think is going to be the best part of this course, so let's dive straight on into it. In part 3, we are now going to use these modern AI tools that you should have login access to begin using it in our day-to-day tasks as a teacher. We're going to go through over 10 practical use cases with step-by-step instructions on how you can maximize the output of AI. And to do that, inside the files that you got along with this digital course, you have access to our PDF course companion. I'm actually going to put our course companion up on the screen here. This course companion contains information for all parts of this digital course, but it mostly focuses on part 3, how you can specifically use AI tools in over 10 practical use cases. And my best advice to you as a teacher for when you're using this on a day-to-day basis is open up the PDF after saving it onto your computer, or even print it out and have it next to you on your desk. But if you're using it on a device, simply drag it over to the left-hand side and have ChatGPT, which is going to be the AI tool that we're going to use for the majority of these practical cases, on the right-hand side. That way you can reference information and put it straight into content creation mode simultaneously on the one screen. The way that this course companion works is if you scroll down to the contents page, we have all 13 plus a bonus practical use case with all of the instructions and step-by-step information that you're going to need to achieve these. So let's begin now with our 13 and an additional bonus one that I'm excited to show you about. Welcome to our first batch of these walkthroughs on practical use cases of modern AI tools for teachers. And we're going to start with a big one. We're going to go through how you can use ChatGPT to be able to create your lesson plans. Now here on the left, we are inside our course companion, and I've scrolled down to our first practical use case lesson planning. And I'm going to go through just how all of these practical use cases are set out inside our course companion. And it's all based on this idea that we went through in the beginning of this course, and that is the quality of AI output is only as good as the clarity and the detail of the human input. And what I've done is I've condensed all the information that you're going to need into what I've called a prompt list. It's a series of prompts that are indented based on if you want to get some more specific information to be able to generate that practical use case. And here we have at the top of every single one of our practical use cases in bold, we have our initial overarching statement. This is going to get us achieving this practical use case. In terms of how you use it, and the reason we've got the screen set up this way, is that you take these statements, these prompts on the left-hand side, and you simply copy and paste, adjusting them into ChatGPT. Remember that anytime you adjust information, to safeguard you, make sure you remove any confidential information. Anything that is highlighted in yellow, we have where you need to replace that with information of your own. Anything that's highlighted in blue is optional. You can choose to include that or not, depending on the context of your subject area or the purpose of you using AI. We begin by copying and pasting the overarching primary prompt. And then if we're satisfied with the AI output, we can stop there and go ahead and use it. Or if we want to tweak and train the AI to give us better responses, we can then give it iterative feedback. This is an amazing part of ChatGPT. The initial prompt that you put in and the initial output that it comes out with. You can then ask it further questions and it remembers the conversation that you had before. It is a conversational tool, and we're going to use that to our advantage here. So let's dive straight on in. I want to create a lesson plan. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our primary prompt, highlight it, copy it, and paste it inside the ChatGPT box there. Anything in square brackets I'm going to replace. So for example, write a lesson plan for Year 8 students on the science topic of, and I might replace this with the water cycle. I will just go ahead and click enter, and off it goes. This will never get old for me, just watching the ChatGPT generate this content. It's pretty powerful stuff. Whilst that's generating an amazing lesson plan for us, I'm going to scroll back over to our course companion, because after each practical use case, if you scroll to the following page, I've actually put in a sample output. The sample output is actually showing you a conversation that I've previously had with ChatGPT and how I've given it iterative feedback in my conversation with the modern AI tool to produce exactly what I want to the standard that I want it. So I'm going to come back up here to the prompt list and let's have a quick look at a previous example that I made for this topic on lesson planning, where I asked ChatGPT to write a lesson plan for Year 10 students in the subject of English on the novel The Lord of the Flies by William Golding. It's given me a great structure to a lesson plan. It's got an objective, materials that I need to use, a warm-up activity, some advice for direct instruction and guided practice, I do, we do, you do, followed by some independent practice activities, how we can close off the lesson to check for understanding, which we know is such a crucial part of high quality teaching, and some ideas for some formative and summative assessment tasks. Now, whilst the structure and the initial outlay of this looks really fantastic and really promising, when we start to read this, the quality, at least for me, is not to the standard that I want it to be. So this is where I'm now going to use our sub-prompts. Sub-prompts in our prompt list give iterative feedback to AI to say, I want you to improve this part or this part of the output that you've created. I'm looking here at independent practice. Ask students to consider a character and their development throughout the story. It's not a strong activity that's going to lead to engaged students. So this is where I can now use ChatGPT and let's give it some iterative feedback. I want it to instead give me 3 differentiated activities for independent practice and making them at 3 levels of difficulty. I'm going to show you the historic conversation that I've had with ChatGPT, and now let's have a look at what it gives me. I've gone ahead and typed in that prompt, that sub-prompt, and I now have a low difficulty, medium difficulty, and high difficulty task. Already the quality of this lesson plan is improving. Let's say, for example, I have a student inside my class with a specific learning need. I want to be able to therefore tailor the activity for them. And this is where you can give further impact in a more information prompt. So underneath this, I'm going to adjust a particular activity. And in this example, I'm going to put in the prompt, remember copying and pasting it across and altering what you need. Adjust activity 1, so the low activity task that we came up with, to cater for students who have dyslexia. Clicking enter on that has now produced a low difficulty task specifically tailored to students with dyslexia, which is very, very powerful. We know as teachers to support a student with dyslexia, for example, they're going to need some scaffolded information. They might need some key terms or some key notes to have side by side with them to therefore be able to access and complete the activity. So now I'm going to go into the supporting information prompt, copying and pasting this across. Give me a list of key events and characters to assist with this activity. Here, it's now outputted a list of events, a list of the characters in Lord of the Flies, which I can then copy and paste into a Word document and either physically or digitally provide for my student with dyslexia to be able to have them to access that activity and get them to engage with it as well. Quite powerful stuff. The next sub-prompt that I want to go through is a summary of this lesson in 10 full sentences. Now, whether you choose to give this to your students or not is up to you as the teacher, but this is additional information that may be useful in the lesson. So here I've said, give me a summary of this lesson in 10 full sentences for notes and revision purposes, and there you have it. Now, I want to have some advice here. I actually haven't put an option behind the number 10. And this is because I've experimented with ChatGPT. If you ask it to summarize a particular topic in 15, 20, or 30 sentences, it starts to decrease the quality of the output. And I find that 10 full sentences just hits that sweet spot to be able to produce quality information in a quality summary. If you were doing a humanities topic and we have some statistics and key dates that we need to consider, this is where you can optionally add that to the sub-prompt to give you further information. But please keep in mind that at the time of this recording in January 2023, ChatGPT only has information up until 2021 loaded into the system. So therefore it doesn't have the most up-to-date recent information and might need to be something that we need to work around. Another sub-prompt that you can use is to ask ChatGPT to give 5 discussion questions, because we know just how powerful effective questioning techniques are in the classroom. So here we go. I've typed in, give me 5 discussion questions that require critical thinking and references the notes. So the idea behind this is for your more advanced students, they'll be able to answer these questions and participate in the discussion verbatim. However, for students that we need to provide a bit more support and scaffolding, perhaps you could provide them these notes, have that next to them for them to again engage in the conversation. So here we have 5 discussion questions that we can then use. A more information prompt asks it to give me an analysis of these 5 questions, where you can actually get ChatGPT to give you some answers to therefore at least prompt or kickstart the discussion if you've got a class that's particularly feeling shy on that day and not up to participating at the length that you would like them to. And then for students again that might need some more support, a supporting information prompt is a really, really powerful thing. And I've used this one quite often in our practical use case. Is if you ask ChatGPT to give you an answer to any question that you might use in the classroom, by giving it the prompt, rewrite these answers for a 5-year-old to understand, quite literally does that. It rewrites any output that an adult would be able to understand quite easily into more simplified language for your students. This means that you can use ChatGPT from primary school right up to secondary school. and even beyond that. You can actually tailor the output to put it at a point of need for your students for them to achieve maximum understanding. And isn't that just fantastic? And lastly is something that we know as teachers we need to do. We've got students that are sometimes absent from school, and it's our responsibility to load in a summary of the lesson into a learning management system, an LMS. So here, to wrap things up, we can actually ask ChatGPT, give me a lesson summary of notes and the activities for students who are absent to therefore do at home. Here we go. It's now absolutely summarized everything that we've given it so far in iterative feedback. Simply copy and paste it into your LMS, modify as you need to, and you're on your way. Such a powerful first practical use case. If you want to see a summary of all this, please do feel free to read through the sample output where I've copied this same information across so you can see the quality and you can begin to think of further tweaks on your own. In this next use case, we're looking at lesson activities. How we can use ChatGPT to dive further deeper into quality lesson planning, to create scaffolded and laid out plans for an effective run activity that's centered on high student engagement and looks at the different levels of critical thinking in Bloom's taxonomy as our students demonstrate their journey to mastery of a particular topic. And what I've got for you today is 4 different scenarios that you might like to use this practical use case for. And the first one is based on Bloom's taxonomy itself. It's looking at the different levels or different categories of higher order thinking, starting at the lower end with remember, moving on to understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, create, to give you a list of activities at each level. So all I'm going to do is copy and paste our primary prompt over in our course companion, bring it over to ChatGPT, and I've got here for you a historic example of this prompt. Here I've got it to generate a series of activities for year 3 students on the topic of healthcare, which came to mind. So here we can see that for the remember activity, we have a memory match task. We have an activity for understand, for apply, for analyze, for evaluate, and to create, with instructions on how to do each of those. Really powerful stuff for you as a teacher, but to also even support an education assistant or even provide feedback to your parents on what their child has been working on. Great stuff here. Now, if I'm looking at, for example, let's go back to our remember and memory match. Students will be given a set of cards with different types of alternative medicine treatments. This is where students can actually have further scaffolded support by our sub-prompt. So if we come over here, provide detailed teaching notes for one of the 6 activities that we've just generated. Provide notes for students that includes all of the information that they're going to need to use. Let's get ChatGPT to help us out with the next part of this planning process. So scrolling down, provide a detailed activity for the apply one. So the apply one was the activity of choice. Let's have a look at that. So for the apply, we've got an alternative medicine case study. Students will work in pairs to create a case study on a fictional patient who's been prescribed an alternative medicine treatment. So here's an example of that. Scrolling down, we have this activity. So here we can see we've got the materials, we've got step 1, step 2, step 3. We've got all of the important terms that the students are going to need to know and some statistics and sources. Now, whilst that may not be particularly applicable to year 3 students, it still gives you a starting point to have those conversations, and you can always tell ChatGPT, write this in a way that a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 15-year-old would understand. You can use that to your advantage. But to have all this information given to you in this point of need is awesome to have. Now let's branch out to some other ideas. Where can we now use ChatGPT to access those higher orders of thinking? And we know as teachers, one of the most powerful ways that students learn is by discussion and conversation and teaching each other and learning off each other's responses. And one way that we can do that is in a debate. So here, I believe it's at the top of my historic prompt. I'm going to say, give 5 debate topics on a certain topic that have an affirmative and a negative perspective. Now, we know for students that they really sometimes struggle with public speaking or feeling prepared to deliver an in-class conversation or a discussion. This is where we can use ChatGPT to do all the groundwork that we need to then provide students to help them to be able to engage and access the activity. So here we go. We've got 5 debate topics. Should the government provide universal healthcare for all systems? Affirmative yes, negative no, and so on and so forth. This is where we can now use a sub-prompt. Write a detailed debate notes on one of the 5 topics that you get to pick and provide notes for the first or second or third speaker on either the affirmative or the negative. So as I said, we can really go drive this point home to really give the students as much support as they need to be able to access this activity. So I've picked, for example, topic number 4, which is, should the use of alternative medicine such as acupuncture and chiropractic care be covered by healthcare insurance? Yes or no? So provide notes for the 3 affirmative speakers. Provide a sentence summary for each speaker's main debates and provide them with all the stats and information that they're going to need to give a really convincing argument. So here we go. Here is your topic. We have the affirmative side. Here is what affirmative speaker number 1 gets access to. Here is what affirmative speaker 2 gets access to. And 3. We can see that there's been sources cited and facts distributed throughout this output. It is amazing quality stuff. So here we go. That is one example of how you can quickly create a debate based off your lesson idea. One of the next specific activities is a case study. So another really great way to access some of those higher order thinking level questions. And here on the right hand side in my historic ChatGPT log, we've got a fictional case study. I've picked the topic of biodiversity for year 10 students to analyze, and I've included facts and stats to add to the case study. So once again, I've just copied the primary prompt, changed the information to suit my needs, and I've put it into ChatGPT. So the case study is the deforestation of the Amazon rainforest. A background's been provided for me, a case study based on a fictional lady named Maria, using factual stats to be able to back it up. And then we've also got some facts and statistics to support that. What an engaging way to create an example case study to therefore be able to be read as a class or on an independent practice basis. But let's dive in further. The next subprompt is looking at, give me 5 questions about the case study. Make the questions vary in complexity and order them from easiest to hardest. Again, catering for the differentiated needs for our students in the classroom. So here we go. Here are our 5 questions. What is the Amazon rainforest? Really straightforward and simple to engage first question. But then we go on to question number 5. What actions can be taken to protect the Amazon rainforest and its biodiversity? So again, the ChatGPT has been clearly told what it is that we want, and it was able to successfully provide that. Here is where it gets really interesting though. The next subprompt is, give me answers to these questions and give me facts and stats to back it up, because that's good practice for when we're answering questions in the classroom. And in fact, ChatGPT did just that. Here are our 5 answers to those 5 questions that we were able to produce. We can see scattered throughout, we've got stats, we've got facts to back it up. This is where we can use it to really help prompt our students, nudge them in the right direction, and give them that supporting scaffold that they're going to need to achieve success. It also allows them to successfully mark their own work. And the last one we've got here is, once again, an old classic coming back already. Rewrite the same 5 answers, but for a 5-year-old to understand. Asking ChatGPT to be able to provide a simple and easy to understand output. You can see the length has significantly decreased and the words that are being used are much simpler to understand in vocabulary. And the third and final specific activity that we've got for you today is a role play, where we can actually ask students to engage in a more practical sense for a topic, make it come to life, make it visible in the lesson. So here we've got a role play request that we've copied and pasted. So we've come over to the primary prompt, copied that over to ChatGPT. We've looked at year 7 students, I should say, for 3 students. So it's a 3-student, 3-character role play that they're participating in for year 7 students on the topic of medieval Europe. And coming down, we've got a setting. We've got character 1, who is King Henry, with his age and his background. Character 2, Sir Thomas, who's 30, and character 3, who is Lady Catherine, who is age 25. We've got a plot, we've got a conflict, we've got a resolution. So we can provide those notes to 3 students in our class and actually create different role-playing scenarios for each group of 3 or 4 or 5 in your lesson, to be able to then have them come back together at the end of a lesson and showcase their learning in a visible and practical sense. What a wonderful way to engage students in our lessons. And that is practical case number 2. This next use case is going to help us as teachers, making sure that we consistently and quickly provide an empathetic and professional response to any concern or query that we may get from a parent. Now, in this primary statement, we begin by asking ChatGPT to act as a professional teacher. We're figuratively asking the AI to put on a teacher's hat in how it formulates the response, keeping in mind that being empathetic is the number one way that we should be acting in our responses to parents. In this example here, I have also put a star icon to remember that we must de-identify all confidential information when we're using AI tools, remembering that AI tools have the right to store our information and you need to be safeguarding yourself. So here I have copied the primary prompt and I have replaced this yellow section with the parent email, de-identifying it. So here in this example, I've got the primary prompt. I've put in John Doe as a classic way that we can de-identify it. Instead of the student's name, I've put the word child, and we've got the kind regards concerned parent. So a really simple way that we're not sharing any private information whatsoever to the AI system, where we have a parent who's concerned over a student's 45% mathematics test result. So here we can see it's provided a really empathetic email back, and we may not choose to use this 100% in its entirety, but again, to fight that writer's block and that creative block, this is a great template for us to get started with. And once again, scrolling down to the sample output, you're going to be able to read that exact output there. And I encourage you, have a look through, see how empathetic the AI is, and how we're only going to need maybe one or two little minor tweaks to have this email ready to be sent back to the parent in record time, reaffirming with them that you as a teacher are going to be working closely with their child to be able to improve those learning outcomes. Just as much as we communicate with our parents at our school, we also equally, maybe sometimes even more, communicate with our colleagues and line managers at the school that we work at. And to be able to provide consistent professional email responses where we need to is a powerful thing that ChatGPT can help us out with. And in this example, I've got three specific scenarios that I find quite often comes up in our need to write a written email response as a teacher. The first one is asking support from a line manager. The second scenario is asking for further clarification on a certain task that needs to be done. And the third scenario is to confirm professionally and formally to confirm receipt of a particular request or an action that needs to be taken. These are the three scenarios that I've also historically put into ChatGPT on the right that you can read through in our sample output. And again, only one or two minor tweaks would need to be made to be able to then have that sent off in a really quick to reply email. Once again, general reminder, looking at the star icon here, that you must de-identify any confidential information for the emails that you're copying in. This next one is a big one for us teachers, and that is for us to write report comments in a formal setting at the end of each semester to be added to an academic report for a student, so that the family can gather around together and read the feedback and constructive advice on how the student can better their engagement and performance in the following semester. Now, in the primary prompt for this use case, we've got, again, starting with advising ChatGPT to act as a professional teacher, putting that fictional hat on. That way we can achieve that minimum word length and the correct tone of how we would expect an academic report comment to be written. Again, a reminder to always de-identify any personal information for the student. So what I've done is, for the placeholder example in the sample output, I've replaced all students' names with John Doe as an example placeholder, because then I can provide notes for what this student has achieved throughout the semester, so that ChatGPT can create a nuanced and individualized report comment for that student, making it very, very personal. So here we've got in this example for John Doe, our placeholder student, that the student needs to be referred to as she and her throughout the report comment, so that way we're avoiding any grammatical errors. We also have provided ChatGPT with notes on specific things that the student has achieved throughout the semester. So the student won 3rd place in the 100-meter freestyle. Student is punctual, but sometimes needs to be corrected about their uniform. And they participated in service learning and participates in co-curricular soccer. So what we've got here is an amazing output for our report comment, where once again, we can copy and paste this into our report comment folder to be able to then provide some small tweaks to then send it off and have that ready for production. What I would also advise is if you copy and paste this entire report comment into a program, say for example, Microsoft Word, you can use the find and replace tool to find that placeholder student name and replace it with the student's name that you need to have it for. That way, again, you're mitigating the amount of work that you need to do as a teacher, and you can focus solely on tweaking and improving the default response that ChatGPT has produced for you. This next use case is about helping you as a teacher to organize and plan your scope and sequence when you're delivering a new topic to your students, or even to provide your students with some really great content notes for them to use as part of your studies. And all of that combined falls under the category of having ChatGPT create detailed topic summaries. And there are two specific scenarios that we'll go through. And the first one is asking ChatGPT to create a study guide on any particular topic. We begin with a really basic primary prompt, and that is to provide a study outline of a certain topic. And here over in our sample output, we've asked ChatGPT to create a study outline for cells. We can see that Roman numerically, it's broken down the topic of cells into 6 categories, giving you some of those main points that falls within each of them. It's a great initial starting point, but we can use ChatGPT to give us so much more. So our first sub-prompt is to pick one of those 6 points that we've just generated and asking it to provide a detailed summary with definitions and stats in 10 full sentences. Now, it's important to note that 10 is not just some arbitrary number. After a lot of testing with ChatGPT, I've found that any more than 10 full sentences, ChatGPT starts to get quite vague and it starts to repeat some of those points. Not effective. I've also found that anything less than 10, we find that ChatGPT misses out on some really key points in its entirety. So 10 is that sweet spot to really detailingly summarize any topic that you would like. And that's exactly what I asked it to do. So in the next sample out point, we've had point 2, which we can see up here is our cell structure and function. We've asked ChatGPT to summarize it in 10 full sentences. And that's exactly what it did. It's so powerful here. It's even got acronyms that's been expanded upon for us. So it's a great, useful tool for both us as teachers and for our students too. Our next more information prompt is a pretty powerful one as well. It's to take all this great information that we've just produced and ask ChatGPT to create flashcards for it. Now you can use this to either make digital online flashcards or even flashcards in person, or have students share and add and contribute to that amongst themselves. But a really powerful statement to put within a prompt is in a table format, because ChatGPT, as you can see in this sample output here, can produce information in an organized table, which is just awesome to have. And for our students who may have trouble accessing this information, again, we've got another more information prompt where they can rewrite this so that a 5-year-old would understand it. And down here, that's exactly what I've done. I've asked ChatGPT to rewrite those 10 prompts in really simple to understand language. The second specific scenario that you can use to create a detailed topic summary is a SWOT analysis. And we know SWOT analyses are strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And again, we're going to leverage this in a table format ability that ChatGPT has. And in an example that we've got here, I've asked it for a SWOT analysis on the economics topic of inflation. And here we can see it's broken it down into a great table with some further supplementary information, which you can then use to rewrite as a 5-year-old needs to understand it, or any other bits of information that we've gone through in these practical use cases so far. It's great stuff. This next use case is going to help you summarize all of the professional learning and development that you've undertaken throughout the year and provide you with a series of key referenceable notes that you can store on your personal device. Here we are going to ask ChatGPT to summarize a source of information in 10 full sentences. Again, 10 being that number that is the sweet spot to provide you with really great actionable advice. Then you can just copy and paste the informational source that you were using. A reminder that depending on what information you are being given, there are copywriting laws around much of it, and you need to make sure that for a lot of them, personal use only being used, you need to make sure that within your own country, you are following very closely the copywriting laws that apply to that particular source of information. Alternatively, you can actually use this to summarize YouTube videos, being a public domain. So what I've got here is one of my favorite TED Talks by Azul on how a good teacher can be great. And YouTube have this amazing part where if I come down to this ellipses option down here on the bottom right hand corner and come down to show transcript, it will use AI within YouTube to give me a transcript of the video, to then have me highlight all of the information that was said throughout the video, copy it into this primary prompt, and have again a summary of this video. Now, this isn't only useful for just me in my own professional reading log. I can also use this to summarize any YouTube video, even the ones that we use for educational purposes for our students. You can then match that with other use cases that we've got to generate questions and answers and activities and discussion prompts. It's great stuff that you can really explore deeply into. This is a big one. It's going to help you fight writer's and creator's block on writing test questions. We know as teachers sometimes we resort to paraphrasing old and previous assessments to give us inspiration on new ideas. But don't worry about that for anymore, because ChatGPT can help you create original assessment questions on both multiple choice and extended responses, which are the two use cases that we're going to have a look at. Now we can see that in the creating multiple choice questions as our first scenario, we've got quite a large primary prompt. And that's because we have to give ChatGPT clarity and detail on the exact style of multiple choice questions that we want. So I want multiple choice questions that assess a different skill, providing at least one question within the group that assesses a common misunderstanding, provide at least one question that has a practical application, and you've got to tell ChatGPT how many options that you want for each question. So here in our sample output, I've asked it to generate 5 questions on the topic stars, so the astronomy topic. We've got here 5 questions that we have a mixture between common understandings, common misunderstandings, short questions and long questions. It is a great way to generate some original ideas for multiple choice questions. In our second scenario, we've got extended responses and having ChatGPT create essay questions. Write me a certain number of full sentence essay questions on a certain topic and make the question broad enough to warrant a long response, because that's what we want. We want to be able to create a question that students are going to need a certain number of words to therefore be able to answer. Provide at least one question that has a practical application of the topic as well. That's always a fun one to put in. So here I've got 5 questions being generated on the topic of the water cycle within science and humanities. And here we can see we've got 5 very different questions. Again, if we don't use these verbatim, we can always use these questions as original ideas to at least get the process started, to fight that writer's and creative block. In the next few examples, we're going to show how we can take these questions and go one step further. We'll see you over there. We're going to dive deeper into multiple choice questions now by having ChatGPT generate some great explanations to support each individual question that you can use as a teacher to confirm your understanding and help you find ideas to teach that topic to your students, or even provide the explanations to your students so they can use as part of their own study. Here we're going to provide ChatGPT with a question, and we're going to ask it to generate which one is the correct answer and why is it the correct answer. We're going to go one step further, and in our primary prompt, we're going to ask ChatGPT to explain why are the other options incorrect and how can we have some advice to ensure that no further misunderstanding is developed if we've accidentally selected one of those incorrect answers. Absolutely amazing stuff. So here in this primary example over here in the sample output, we've got 8 questions here, and we've actually asked ChatGPT to create the correct answer. So we can see the correct answer is B. Here are the reasons why. Here are the reasons why options A, C, and D are incorrect. And here is an example of how we can make sure that no misunderstanding is developed in the future. Really great stuff. Again, we're going to go one step further in our sub-prompt, and we're going to ask to rewrite the explanation of the correct answer and incorrect answers so that a 5-year-old would understand it. And here we go. They are more simplified in terms of its understanding. An amazing way to really support our students. This is probably the most polarizing practical use case that we're going to go through in this course. And it's based on this idea that when students inevitably discover that they can do this for themselves, it really is going to put a challenge towards our teaching practice that we're going to need to come up with some workaround solutions. But I've got all of that information over in part 4, where we discuss the implications of AI for our students. And the reason why is because this is asking ChatGPT to generate a sample essay. And remember that when we ask ChatGPT back in our introduction video to write me an essay on apples, it's going to give a really vanilla and generic response. But now what we're going to do is we're going to have ChatGPT, first of all, plan a structure to the essay to then write it. It's actually the practice that we teach our students. Plan before you write. And we're going to get ChatGPT to do just that. We're going to start off with the primary prompt, provide an essay outline and give it a question. And then we're going to use 3 types of sub-prompts and make it really clear and detailed on what it is exactly we want ChatGPT to do. We're going to get it to write an introduction, a body paragraph that will rinse and repeat for each of the body paragraphs, and a conclusion. But I encourage you to read through these sub-prompts because I've made sure that there's a clear thesis statement, each paragraph links between them, and there are examples. And I've even got some paragraph writing structures. Over on the sample output, we've used the question, analyze how language patterns are used to create meaning in the novel The Lord of the Flies by William Golding. Here we've got our 5-paragraph essay outline with our introduction and conclusion bookending our essay and our 3 body paragraphs. I've then asked in our sub-prompts, copying it over, to rewrite each of those 5 paragraphs in the exact way that I want it to. I can then use that to amalgamate our paragraphs together and generate a response. I encourage you to read through the sub-prompts and then read through the sample output where I've copied and pasted the amalgamated essay together so you can see the quality. It's not perfect, but it will get stronger over time, and we can discuss how we can help support our students when they inevitably discover this as well in our later sections. This use case is probably the most complicated task that we are going to ask ChatGPT to do. But once the technology becomes stronger and stronger to the point where it becomes just as good as us, I see this use case being the #1 practical application for teachers. And that is to have AI mark extended responses for us. Here we have a primary prompt that does require a bit of background work to be done to set up the structure to make ChatGPT clearly understand exactly how it's supposed to mark and provide feedback for a particular response. So here in the primary prompt, we've got give this response to the question, a mark out of, and the total number of marks or points using the provided marking key. And you've got to structure it with the question, marking key, and the student response. So over in our sample output, we've got here a question that's worth 4 marks. We have the question that's been put here on globalization. We've got a marking key which has been clearly laid out with what 4 out of 4 would look like down to what 1 out of 4 would look like, and we've pasted in the student's response. The output that we've got is amazing in that ChatGPT has awarded it a 3 out of 4 marks with this reason. We can then dive one step further and ask ChatGPT in our conversation that we've already started, how can we improve this response, and give me an exemplar on what a 4 out of 4 would look like. And that's going to really explicitly show our students on how they can improve their writing over time. So here we've got some advice from ChatGPT on how the response can be improved according to the question that we've given it, and an exemplar answer that ChatGPT would be worth 4 out of 4 that we can always tweak and modify should we need. Now, as of this recording in January 2023, we are yet to see AI tools that can photographically read students' handwriting and convert that into typed text. There's also the challenge with some of our students where their handwriting is quite difficult to decipher, but that technology will come. In the interim, have any and every opportunity you can in a formative assessments or just even in day-to-day lesson activities to have students create typed responses, because you can then use ChatGPT for this direct reason. This last practical use case is a really great one where we can go one step further in providing really great and individualized feedback for our students based on any written response that you can imagine. And here we're going to ask ChatGPT to give an outline of constructive feedback and focusing on some of the key areas for how students can improve their written responses to any question in any subject area. So the primary prompt is to provide an outline looking at the areas of level of complexity of response, correctness of grammar, the clarity of the response, the correctness of information, and the strength of the argument. And then we can copy and paste the student's response in with a reminder that we always need to de-identify any responses that we put into ChatGPT. So here in our sample output, we've got here a constructive feedback for a student on a question to write a persuasive essay on the impact of cloning humans. Here we've got a sample input with a constructive feedback output. Here we've had ChatGPT break it down to each of those sections. But let's dive one step further and we can ask ChatGPT in our subprompts to expand on each of those points individually to give more information. We can even use the hamburger model to provide some constructive feedback, but also to provide and highlight areas of strength. This is what forms effective feedback for our students. So here we can see it's providing level of complexity, correctness of grammar, breaking it down to each of those areas that we've requested and giving some really in-depth and targeted feedback with quotes from the original response from the student to really put relevance and contextual information around that feedback. Some of the other information that we've got in the subprompts is number 2 here, to provide a summary of the feedback. It is quite a lot. We know that for some of our students, short snapshots of feedback is what's more relevant to them. That's going to help them change and engage with their learning. The summary is provided there. But then we've also got, if you ever wanted to do a one-on-one conversation with students, you can provide 3 targeted questions to ask students to reflect on their writing and offer them 3 specific strategies. So here we can have this turn into a one-to-one conversation with you as a teacher with the student as a post-assessment interview, or even you can have students individually answer their own questions on how they can reflect on their achievement and performance and how they can tweak going forward. Powerful stuff. This practical use case is going to help you in your career as a teacher by helping you write a cover letter. So whether it be applying for your first ever job as a teacher, applying to a new school, or even applying for a promotional position, you're going to be able to use ChatGPT to help you out with this process. Again, helping you fight writers and creators block to get started, where you can tweak and modify to suit the output to your liking. Remember again, advice to always de-identify everything that you put into ChatGPT as your input. Here we are going to figuratively ask ChatGPT in our primary prompt to put on a hat to act as a professional teacher in setting the correct tone of formality and professionalism in writing your cover letter. We're going to ask ChatGPT to write a cover letter based on a job description that you can copy and paste in, again, de-identifying that, which then you can have supportive evidence be given to ChatGPT by copying and pasting your resume in. So ChatGPT will be able to look at the job description, look at what you've achieved and amalgamate the 2 together and put it in the tone and language that suits the school that you're applying for. Amazing stuff to help you get started. So in this example, I've omitted for privacy reasons because I've used my own resume, the input that I've put in for ChatGPT. But here we've got an actual output of a cover letter to apply for a maths teacher position as pretend. Here you can read the entire cover letter where I've been able to generate this in under a minute so that I can therefore go ahead and tweak it just to my liking. All the best if you're ever applying for any position. In this part, we are going to address the big implications that modern AI tools will have on our students. Because even though for us as teachers, we're really excited to leverage this amazing technology for us to finally have our own personal teaching assistant, our students, for when they inevitably discover this technology, and they will discover it soon, they may leverage it too to have their own student personal assistant. And if they ever had an assessment where they were able to use their device, they may leverage the technology to generate an output for them, therefore invalidating the grade or mark that we assign them. So in this part, we're going to go through what are our options and also how AI is going to pivot the focus for us as teachers when it comes to assessment and general teaching and learning. Remembering that the number one focus for education is for us as teachers to impart our knowledge for students so that they feel confident to use that knowledge in a critical thinking setting to be able to have success in the world with whatever stage in humanity that we are at. And this is the start of a new era. So let's dive on in with what our options are. I'm going to start with actually a pretty big statement. And the big statement is that AI plagiarism detection simply won't work. And I'm going to demonstrate this for you live at the recording of this course, because whilst we may immediately think we can actually just plagiarism detect any response from our students, it's going to become more and more difficult with this as the strength of modern AI tools begin to increase. Not only that, AI plagiarism detection may only work for one or two particular online tools, remembering that ChatGPT is the umbrella language model that all other companies will be able to use. So there is nothing stopping a company from having a lesser known language model website where it takes the outputs of ChatGPT, manipulates it a little bit to bypass AI plagiarism detection. It will become quite difficult for us as teachers to discern to what level is a student's response theirs versus AI. Let's dive into a live example here. So in our course companion on practical use number 10, I'm going to highlight the introduction to the essay that we had ChatGPT write on Lord of the Flies by William Golding. I'm going to copy this initial introduction and put it into, because they already exist, an AI content detector. When I've put in this introduction paragraph, it has detected that 14% of the content that was created was generated by a human, implying that the majority was created by AI. Now, the issue with this is it is not a certain figure. 14% could be an arbitrary number. We don't know the maths or the technology behind this AI content detector. It's also very difficult to argue the authenticity of an original creation of a response. Where it becomes a bit more concerning is that with just as much AI content detectors there will be, and with just as much language model websites there will be, there are also equally going to be paraphrasing websites coming into play. One that I've got here to show with you is known as Quillbot. I have equally copied that same introduction and have gotten Quillbot, which is a free to use service that our students may use, to actually paraphrase the entire introduction. So that when I copy this and paste it back into that same AI plagiarism detection tool, it's now changed to 53%. And remembering that AI will be able to create the initial response that students will be able to therefore edit further. It's going to give them the starting point for them to fight writer's block and creator's block. So for us as teachers, it's a pretty safe statement to say that AI content detection or AI plagiarism detection will be incredibly difficult for us to do as teachers and will be quite time consuming of a task. And we're not sure to what level of technology in the near future will therefore come out to support us as teachers. But what is it that we can do to help? We can actually start to shift what our pedagogy is all about. And this is where we can use AI in an exciting way with all of those practical use cases that we showed before. We're all quite familiar with Bloom's revised taxonomy in 2001. It is a very common teaching model, and using AI to be able to do a lot of the legwork and groundwork is going to move the initial focus for teaching and learning to understanding and remembering content to having students have the content in front of them for them to engage in higher order levels of thinking, in creating, evaluating, and analyzing. And if we focus our assessment practice, and if we focus our general teaching and learning to have more of these higher level thinking, we're going to be able to better equip our students to have the confidence needed to successfully engage in whatever career they choose to embark on in their future. So let's go through what some of the current advice that I would have for teachers on how we need to shift and pivot our approach to assessment and teaching and learning. I would say to go ahead and use AI to generate notes and practice questions and exemplars. The more that we can scaffold and provide students with exemplars on this is a response that we want you to work towards with granular steps along the way is going to help improve academic outcomes. We need to, again, focus on Bloom's taxonomy and shift teaching approach towards what students can do with the knowledge that they're going to be able to have readily accessible in front of them. We're going to look at avoiding summative assessments that contributes to a student academic grade that involves take-home tests or any tests that involve a device, and instead focus on in-class assessments to continue to measure understanding and creative application and critical thinking of theoretical concepts. And how you can do that is it could be an in-class assessment with a device, and you could be watching to see if ChatGPT is not being used. That could be a very simple circumvent on how we can avoid this technology interfering with measuring student success. Or we can have in-class debates and presentations and discussions, and some really great higher order thinking assessments coming into play. Alternatively, we could actually really leverage formative assessments and how students construct their learning over time, where they can use ChatGPT to give them iterative feedback on what they can improve. And that is where I believe ChatGPT is at its most powerful benefit for our students. And I would also advise to stay up to date, because a lot of news will be coming out within the next few years on how ChatGPT and other language, image, and audio models will begin to influence the education industry. It's a very exciting time to be in. And that concludes our digital course on Make Teaching Easier with Artificial Intelligence. And I'm going to put a little asterisk on that statement because this is a live course. And what I mean by that is modern AI tools will only get stronger over time, and brand new companies and models are going to come into play that will impact our teaching profession. And anytime that there is a major change that you need to be aware of, the email that you use to purchase this digital course, I will send you another email giving you a link back to this course where you'll be able to see and read and view all of the new content about modern AI tools that you need to know. So please do stay up to date with all of the amazing emergences of AI technology. Now, I do need to address that when I went through discovering AI tools for myself, I went through a big paradigm shift, because this is going to be the start of a new era where a lot of our teaching and learning is going to be augmented by AI. But as I said at the start of this digital course, I want to say again now and reaffirm with you that in no way are we being replaced by AI. We're going to still need to have an energetic teacher at the front of the classroom delivering content to our students in a meaningful way and assist in outlining the information that they need to know in the order and the speed that the students need to have at their own development. And for us as teachers, AI is going to only give us superpowers. And isn't that just awesome? Superpowers to do our job better than we were ever able to do before. And I'm going to conclude our series here in this digital course by asking you a question that really helped guide me in my thought processes on what is this AI technology going to imply for me. I'm going to ask you this question, but I won't give you an answer. And I won't even ask ChatGPT to give an answer for me. I want you to use this question in all future thinking that you have about AI. And the question is this: will modern AI tools enhance student learning outcomes? Will it help them engage with subject matter? Will it help them understand subject matter quicker and easier? And will it help them engage with the information at a more complex and deep level so that they can use it to help support them in their future career? It's a big question, but something to think about. Once again, thank you so much for purchasing this digital course. It means the absolute world to me, and I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. If you've got any feedback on how I can enhance this experience for teachers and your colleagues, please do let me know. If you could leave a testimonial, that would be fantastic. I would always like to improve this experience as much as I can. My name is Anthony, and thank you so much for joining me on this big career-defining experience that we're all about to embark on. Thank you.